What's up, Jasmine?
What up?
You guys, we're so excited to be back. It just feels good. Life has happened, and we're so thankful for such a successful season one that we were able to pull back, do some life things, some really exciting, cool things, and do some reflecting. And we are here, your favorite podcast.
Showing up for you. 2022.
2022. Season 2, 2022. Look at that.
That's right.
You guys, so just to get right into it, we've been dying to get back on and just talk about life things because the possibilities are endless. And I was just talking to Jasmine about this. I think that as I reflected over my year, it's been a crazy year for everybody. I think individually we all perceived a crazy year. Interesting, whatever word you use to describe it, it's been abnormal. But what I've noticed is in these hard times or these different times, I've been more aware of what my presence looks like in certain relationships, and maybe like those affirmations that I'm either giving out or expecting to receive. And I was thinking, Jasmine, I started to wonder like what drives us to, I guess, be more present for others versus like not for ourselves. We've talked about like self-reflection, we've talked about self-love and things like that, but us being present for others versus ourselves. And then, kind of this like curiosity of like, why would I seek affirmation from someone who doesn't seem to or absolutely just doesn't value me? Like, these are things that I've been thinking about as I was like going over the course of my year. And it's hard. I mean, like, are you in any way like relating to that? Is it just me?
No, it is definitely not just you at all. I think that this is probably like something that I talk to you about a lot. It's like, and we just say to each other often, like, how can I be present for you? And so just, I think over the course of the year, there's been a lot of life that's happened. There's been a lot of transition that has happened. And, it's made me, really think about like, how am I operating honestly, like in my life with others, because as we know, it sounds cliche to say, but it's like life is relational, and you come across so many different people, whether it's personal relationships, whether it's coworkers, whether it's the grocer at the store, like it's so this topic of being present for others more than yourself, or and vice versa, it is definitely something that I know that I sit and I think about often.
Dang. Okay, so I don't feel so alone in this. You're right. Like all those interactions, they leave an impact. I don't know that I can expect everyone to be like as present, and I don't know that I have been very good at expressing that or communicating that. You know what I mean? And I'll take any fault for that. I think a lot of this whole reflecting thing is noticing like what you have done, what you could have done differently, right? And I think that one of the things I was starting to like wonder is like, well, how am I present for myself? And if that's in a way, how am I present for myself in a way that's relate like relative or realistic for someone else to be present for me, right? So like me being present for myself is not the same way that I would expect you to be present for me, or I wouldn't expect you to be as present for me as my husband is present for me. But what is like a general way that I would expect people to show up for me or be present for me? And that's something that I think we're not communicating very clearly about. Right?
Yeah, I agree with that, because it's it's one of those things where you think about where you put these I know I'm gonna wrap myself out for a second. I I am queen. Actually, long story short, I made a red flags list recently because I just needed to go there, but not the topic, but maybe we'll go there another time. But
yeah, put a pin in that.
List, right? But in my list, I had written down that I am known to put unrealistic expectations onto people and then get mad that they don't live up to that. You know, and so like in, you know, this instance, it's like I think the biggest thing for me is wanting to like be considered, you know, like if for somebody to be present for me, you know, to give, you know, an example is this is actually something that happened with you and I recently. I was having a very bad day and I was very upset about something, and you know, we had a conversation about it. I was in tears. I was super upset. And the one thing that I think that I had said to you a long time ago was like, when I feel overwhelmed or I don't know what to do with myself, I need you to just be. I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to be. But that's, you know, and you knowing that put us in a position to when this happened, you know, this thing happened recently, when you, because of who you are also, you were like, how is it that I can be present for you? But I was able to tell you, like, I just need you to stay on the phone with me. And you did that. And you didn't ask any other questions. You didn't like push anything else onto me. But that was because, you know, prior I had communicated something to you of, I know that how I respond in this type of situation, and this is how I need you to respond to me.
Wow. Okay. So first of all, you're going to make me a little emotional because that moment was huge for me too. Because you communicating what you need from me in advance helped me tap into what I could be for you at that moment. Because the reality is I am that person. Anybody that knows me, I'm always like, okay, well, how can I be present? And there could very well be nothing I could physically do for you, but
right.
I need to know what exactly you might need from me, because I would never want to guess and like try to support you in a way I think you need support. But you had come to me before, you had communicated those expectations, which are very realistic, which is what we're talking about, right? It's like, these are realistic expectations. And Jasmine brings out a part of me that I did not anticipate being. I'm going to be, listen. Because, and I can't blame her, because I am not that person, but this is all you need me to be in this moment. I could be that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I remember one time you were like, just give me a hug. And I was like, my flesh might be like, it's hot. Why do you want? Like, I can't do this for you. But like, I know I want to do whatever I need to do to be present for you. And I want that more than anything in that moment. And so you communicating that, and even just like this most recent time, it's so helpful because I'm fulfilled in being whatever you need me to be. And then you get exactly what you need, you know, and that was very realistic. You're better than me in that, because I think that I could work on that a little bit better. Because I'm not the, like I was telling you before, like I'm not, if we're friends, we don't talk every day. That's just going to be it. Don't talk to me every day. I just don't have the space and energy to do that. And the time, this is just my season. I just can't do it. Right. But if there is something big going on or something you really need, you would know that I'm there. And so what I request as far as presence is like, allow me that time. It's every once in a while, but allow me that time to pour out my heart. You know what I mean? Like, allow me that time to just tell you what I'm struggling with. And, you know, similar to you, I don't necessarily need you to solve it. I need to just know I'm not crazy. I need to not like, this can't be dealt with internally, right? And I'm not saying every phone call with a friend is like, it has to be emotional. It's just the idea that sometimes we just need like somebody to bounce ideas off of, right? And so for me, a realistic way to be present is that like every so often check in. You know, I can't be the only one. I can't be the only one checking in. I can't be the only one reaching out. And so I struggle with that because I realize in a lot of times I am, and um that just, I don't know, that feels one-sided, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's huge though, and I think it's so important, and I think we live in a society where people put these we're talking about realistic expectations, but
Mhm.
people put unrealistic expectations. Like, I'm supposed to give everybody every single detail all the
Mhm.
time at all days. I've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I could tell you what I ate for lunch. I can tell you all of these
Mhm.
things, and like, but in reality, that's not going to make you any closer to a person or make your bond any closer, right? But from what I hear you saying is like, when we check in and you tell me those things, the important
Mhm.
stuff, I'm ride or die. I'm here for you. Like, we're about to do this.
Right.
And I love that so much.
And that's what holds, I think that's what makes it more valuable, is like, okay, we don't have to have these like miniature conversations 10 times a day. We don't have to be, like, you don't have to know my every move. But when we do connect, man, like, it's quality space, it's quality time, right? Man,
Mm-hmm,
like, this
mm-hmm.
is, I don't know. But then I guess that's the beauty of like knowing what these like quality relationships look like, because I'm sure we all have that friend or that person in our lives that they can tell you everything. They spill their guts to you, and they tell you, and you really
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like, I can't tell you anything. Like, you have created the space for them to tell you every move in their life and
Mm-hmm.
everything wrong, but they just cannot, they just don't have the capacity, or they don't have the capability of being present for you. And so you almost just become that friend where it's like, I'm a good listener. Like, that's it.
Yes, your friend that is heavily relied on. You're the yes friend. And
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, with being that person, it oftentimes is like it drives you to be more present for others than you ever are for yourself, right? And so, like,
Mm.
for you, do you even recognize when you're being more present for others than you are for yourself? And if
Oh
you end
yeah.
up in that situation?
Oh yeah, I do. Well, I think I recognize it too late. You know what I mean? My husband tells me that too. Like, I recognize it like too late in the game. Um, and what it looks like is, I kind of like what I was saying earlier, is like, I'm always the one reaching out, or I'm always the one offering opportunities for connection. Um, and when I look at that, I kind of have this moment of like, man, like, I'm not even making these, like, I guess, like, these private moments for myself. I'm working harder to make one for you and I, you know what I mean? Or I'm working harder to try to feed what I think you need,
Right.
rather than what I need. Um, I don't know. I guess I feel like it comes too late. By the time I realize it, I've already like made the calls, and I've already made the arrangements, and I'm like doing all the work, and I'm showing up, and
Yep.
there's no room. There's no more room. You know what I mean?
Right.
What about you?
I'm 10 out of 10 in that same boat. It is oftentimes that I'm too late, or I recognize it and I do it anyways.
Yeah.
Like, that's also like a real reality for me, is like, if I do know, like, I think there's a few specific relationships that I have in my life that I'm at the point with, just like what history has looked like, I guess you could say,
Mm-hmm.
is that I know every time that I'm doing too much, but I will
Mm.
do it anyways. And then I'll
You're
sit there and I'll be
consistent.
mad about it. And then, yes, I'm consistent. So it's like, why would anybody expect me to do anything else? But
Right.
also, why would I expect myself to be present for myself either? So
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, choose how you lose. It's a lose-lose regardless. So somebody's going to be mad at you. You're going to be mad at you. What are you going to end up deciding? But I'd say all that to say, like, I think in moments that I don't recognize it and somebody pulls it out of me, it's usually when I'm at like a really bad breaking point. I'm called in. I'm either ready to cuss somebody out, I'm upset, you know, I'm bawling my eyes out, or, you know, I feel like I'm at wit's end and like my hands are tied,
Yeah.
when I thought like I gave my best. I did everything that I can do, and that wasn't good enough either. So I find myself in that situation often.
Dang. Like, these are realistic things, and I feel like this is very hurtful. There's so much
Right, like, I
energy
don't
put
like
in
it
this
here.
relationships, and there's so much, and it's like, we can reflect on like, hey, like, what does it look like to be present? How do I need you to show up for me, or be present for me? But then on the back end of that, it's like, what makes you think that they aren't doing their best already? Like, what makes you think that they don't already value you? Like, what is happening in those relationships? Just to give like everybody the benefit of the doubt, because I don't think that everybody's intentionally not giving, trying to be present. I think life happens, and I think that we're grown,
Right.
with jobs and careers and school and kids and things like that. And so I guess I have to ask myself, is like, okay, well, what makes me think that they don't value me? And what have I done to either express that value, or like, what would it look like for me to see that you value me? You know what I mean? Those are things that I think that we could be clearer on when it comes to the complication of these relationships. Right? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. With value is tricky. I'll be honest. Like, I'm 26. I'm, navigating a lot of my mid 20s, and I'm also, just like both of us, like just growing up in a digital age, of making the transition of like, I'll just be honest, like not having the internet to like having it, to also like being on steroids. I'm seeing like what value looks like in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm confused. I'm just trying to survive, right? Like start my career, maybe have a family one day, all those things. And so I know that like when the biggest thing that I have to, or I'll say I try, because I don't think that I'm very good at this, is like communicating for me is, I think I mentioned it earlier, like I just want to make sure that I'm considered. And that's my baseline.
Yeah.
Right? Is just like just like my value. If I feel valued when I feel as if I'm considered, baseline. That goes for the grocery store person. Like, you're taking a long time, I need to go somewhere. Are you considering that I could potentially need to go somewhere? The next thing, like a friend, are you, just, right. And I could give all the examples, but you get the point. But I think that like also it's like when I'm in a relationship with somebody, my value or how you value me looks very different. A big thing is, don't dismiss me. That is something that will take me to a dark place, and that's where I will feel like I am not valued by you. Yeah. And also like that kind of goes hand in hand with like being respected. And so I think, those are things that I know that for me, I'm really trying to like work towards communicating that value. Even like I gave the example of the grocer, but like letting the grocer know, like I'm kind of on, a timeline here. Like, do you mind helping me out with this or something like that? So I think that's something that I'm really bad at, trying to see my value and also communicating that as well. Cause I think it's a wrestle for me, I'll be really honest, but, that's something that I know that I hope to like, do moving forward. But, what about for you? Like, what does value look like for you?
It's so funny that you're saying all this, because I'm like, yeah, that's great. This is, my answer. Me too. Because there are there's separate ways to think about it, because you got the general sense of like value or being valued by others, and then you have the more personal sense where, what does that value look like in my husband? What does that value look like in my family? What does that value look like in my closest friends? You know what I mean? And so I'll speak to like, there's something that I do in a general sense. I give grace and I expect it. I don't expect like an overabundance of grace, but it's almost to your point of consideration is like, give me grace. What that might look like for me is the way I give it. And this is the way I would like to receive it. Let's say I'm going through a drive-through, and I'm getting anything between coffee and food or whatever. If I'm going through any kind of drive-through and I get some kind of sass or some kind of disrespect from the person that is operating the food or the money, whatever. My thought immediately is like, I don't know what your day looked like. And you also work at a place where customer service is the driving point. This must suck for you right now. You know what I mean? And it's not an insulting thing. It's like, you know, I feel for people that work in customer service at Walmart. I feel for people that work, they got to remember my coffee order and pass it to the next person and make sure that it's non-dairy. You know what I mean? Like they have to, like, that's a lot. And so, although, yeah, I am inconvenienced that you brushed me off or you did something not okay to me, my first thought is always, and I've said it out loud, to like my husband, or if I'm in the car with somebody, is like, you know what? It's 8 a.m. at this coffee shop. You got a hard day ahead of you, ma'am. I get it. And it's not to belittle or demean. It's like, you have so many orders or so many things to remember. It doesn't matter how nice of a person I am. You probably just dealt with a complicated customer, or you have somebody behind me that gave you a hard time at the window. I don't know. Right. And so I expect that grace, because yes, there are times when I'm literally taking a business call and I got 2 roommates in the back of my car. Like, can I have a cake pop? You know what I mean? And so I'm ordering, and it's a horrible time. Trust me, I know it's a horrible time. But like, you might think that's rude, and I understand it. Trust me. But I have to take this for the client, and I can't get rid of the roommates because you can't put humans on mute. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many things.
Sure can.
So like, when I look at value, or like in a more general sense, I want that. I might not get it, and that's fine. But that's my thought process when I'm dealing with people outside of my circle. Does that make sense? In a more personal sense, like, I think, maybe you were getting to this point, but like, it's all individualistic. It's like, my lover, I am the best thing in your world. Okay. Like, right. So the value that I expect from you,
you gonna love me,
listen, boy. The value that you have to, you cannot come sideways. But the value that I like, you and me, there have been times I'm like, I need you right now. But I'm like, Jasmine has a job. And just because I control my schedule, my job, that does not mean Jasmine.
Don't have a luxury right now. Fine. It's fine.
So I can't expect you know what I mean? But like, I don't expect that kind of like value of your presence for me. I don't expect that. I know that she knows that I wouldn't reach out to her unless it was something important. So when she gets off work, or when she gets a minute, I know she's going to call me back, or even like a family member, like just, my closest family, my immediate family. I expect what I give out, which is just like I am with like you or other friends. It's like, how can I be present for you? I expect that from you, because I want to be heard. I want to be seen. I want to be valued. And just to go back to that point of like, how do you know like you're not being valued, or that they don't value you, is I've experienced that one-sidedness. You know what I mean? I've experienced that like part where I don't think you're even hearing me. I don't think you're listening to me. You know what I mean? And I feel neglected, And so I think that's really the biggest thing is not feeling seen, not feeling heard, or not feeling like there's a reciprocation to what I give out. Right?
Yeah. Wow. That's powerful. And as we're speaking about value, I think that's something that really goes hand in hand, with that is those who value us, they affirm us, right? And oftentimes if, we're talking about individualistic, but like if we have all these different relationships, we often, we can assume that they know how to affirm us and like how we need to be affirmed, and whatnot. But why do we seek affirmation still from people who don't value us?
Well, I mean, short answer, like, it depends on who they are. Like, you're not looking to be affirmed by the grocery store lady. Like, and I don't need to be affirmed by the barista. I just need my lavender coffee. Like, you don't have to, you could very well be having a bad day and I accept it, but did you make sure it was oat milk in it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so we don't necessarily need that from those relationships. We need them from, it depends, right? Okay, so like, let's 86 all the general relationships. Like, let's get detailed with this.
We're going there.
Let's do it, because I'm like, it doesn't count. I can't hold the customer service lady accountable for like my feelings. Like, that's just not gonna work.
Right.
Sometimes you want to. You're like, I'm really.
That's unrealistic, people. Don't do that.
Okay, but the reality is, relationships that are closest to us, our immediate family, our partners, our closest people, you know, like, I've known you since diapers. These are the people that we expect like this value from. Like, these are the people that we like want affirmation from. And it all, like, I struggle with this. Okay. So I'm gonna like whine on camera. I don't know what to call this, right? But like, I struggle with the idea that like, I dream of a mother-daughter relationship with my mom that I know I will never get. Like, but I can't let it go. Like, like, I know, I wish that I had maybe the relationship with my mother that my other sisters do. But I'm positive if I look at the records and I look at the people we are, it's never going to happen. Like, we're never going to like go on vacation together. We're never going to like be best. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to have that. I love my mother and she's a great grandmother. My kids love her. But like, the reality is, I'm seeking affirmation and I'm not going to get it the way I need it. And that could have a lot to do with what she's capable of giving, what she has the capacity of giving, and just the type of people we are outside of mother and daughter, right? And so in this instance, in this relationship, I want affirmation. And then the reality is like, Shon, you know,
like, you realize what you're asking for.
That's a lot. Like, that's whoa there, simmer down. And so that's something that I think a lot of us do, is that we're not realistic. And the sad thing is that relations are becoming more important than relationships. So like, here's the way
It's fine, keep going. Keep going.
Here's the way I see it. I can fight tooth and nail for this relationship because it's my mother. And the thing is, guys, spoiler alert, I will. Because that's just, I'm being totally honest. I will fight for it. But the reality is, like, it takes two. And there's a lot of like shifting in spiritually and like, you know, just mentally. But am I more focused on the relation because I feel like, because that's my mom, we should be able to be BFFs. Duh. Like,
right.
Let's go for mimosas. Like, let's go hang out. Like, what's happy hour? You know, like, I've been dreaming of these things. But I'm hanging on to the idea that this is my mom, rather than the idea that, like, rather than like the value of the relationship as mother and daughter. Like, we have to understand that people can very well be great mothers and great daughters and nothing more. And that's fine. You can be very present for your child, or your parent can be very present for you, however that works. And then you just might not have that space after that to be whatever else you need to be. That doesn't take away from who they are. It doesn't take away from what they've given you. Like, my childhood made me who I am. My mom sacrificed a lot to give me what I have, you know what I mean? As far as like that space and opportunity and the ideas that I have. But I don't like that's she did her job. That was her job and she did it like to completion. You know what I mean? I'm 34 and she did it. So a part of me is like, am I stuck on the relation of, well, you're my mom, be my everything else right now? When the reality is she did her job. She's doing her job. She did what she needed to do. But the relationship I want might not be able to come to pass. And that's going to have to be okay.
I don't know if you guys are okay, but I'm not.
You're so crazy.
I'm like sifting through like relationships in my life and I'm like, oop, there. We good over there. Oop, there. Man. No, that's real. Like I'm shook, but on a more serious note though, I think that more of us experience that than we'd even like to admit. Right. To especially with like a parent relationship, like we're, on our podcast, we're here to be honest. Right.
Yeah.
And so like it is so hard to admit like what the reality is of a relationship with your parent. Nobody wants to come to that reality. Like, let's be real. Like,
yeah, it's hard.
It is all peaches and roses like in your head. And if that's the way that the world worked, then it'd be fantastic. But it's just like the reality is that it doesn't. But I think that, something that's kind of like links is just like longevity, right? Like you will always be linked, like the longevity of your relationship with a family member. Some people have that longevity in friendships as well. I know that for me, I experienced this with like a good friend of mine. I've known her for so long, like long time ago.
Yeah.
And, I think that for a long time, I just wanted her to be involved in my life. Like we've known each other so long. It's like the narrative in my head was so beautiful that I was like, people don't experience this anymore, right? Like we live in a world where it's very rare that you have friends that you've been friends with for, 20 years or, however long.
That's true.
Marriages, all that, whatever. But so I think that it's easy to paint this narrative in our head of like what it could look like if we were to be like those besties.
Oh, like lifetime besties. Like,
yeah. Like we're for lifers. That's what the kids say, right? Excuse me, but
the kids.
Yeah, it's like people want to have that. Like, and I think I wanted that, like, because like when you're so young, you have this crazy, creative imagination where you can put these ideas in your head of like, when I walk down the aisle, my best friend's gonna be my maid of honor.
Oh yeah.
Or her and I, we're gonna be the biggest girl group. Or there's so many things, honestly. So as a kid, like, I know for me is like I held on to a lot of those things. Like I showed up for a lot of big moments in her life, and she showed up for a lot of big moments in my life when we were younger. But we reached a point where that stopped. But I still continued to want to be affirmed by her and things that were happening in my life. And I think, and that was really hard and something that was really difficult for me to wrestle with. And so that continued, like I continued to like work to be like, hey, remember me? I'm still here for you. I want to show up for you. What's going on in your life? And to be like, in a way, like hyper present in her life, almost to a point where it's like, you might not even be invited and you're not even recognizing that.
Oh, wow.
And so, and it's like, but because of longevity, it's much harder to, what's the word? Like, it's harder to like ask somebody to politely exit because of history, I guess you could say, what I mean? And so, I think that was just something that I struggled with for a really long time, was like just wanting to be affirmed by her because I had this narrative in my head of what it should have been. But again, that goes back to, it was an unrealistic, and it's not that she never valued me. Like, I'll make that clear, but it's like, there's just comes a point to where it's like, you're in a way, like your value does diminish in some people's lives. And that's true. That's also a reality. That's okay. Like, you're not supposed to be in people's lives forever, in some people's lives forever. And that's all right.
Seasons, right? No, that's good right there. You make a good point about like longevity, or the idea that almost like there was a moment created or a bond. You know what I mean? I had wrote something and I felt so guilty for it, but then I also like felt so seen. And So it says most times we find peace in a bond with that person and then keep an expectation that this moment or bond represented something it may not have. Growing up was a life building experience and I'm grateful for it, but it also did some damage. And I'm having a hard time separating the need to continue that bond rather than accept the season for what it was. And that hit me because it was like, so wow, like that's the answer. But then that's also like, dang, like a bond or a moment took me that far, almost to obliviousness. You know what I mean? And so you talking about this idea that like I wanted to still be friends because of the longevity, because of I wanted to be able to say these things. You're just sticking, you're letting the energy of that bond carry you and not necessarily like the value of the presence of that person or the affirmation of that person. Like that's just not it. You know what I mean? And we do that often, you know, and like I said, this episode, I'm, you know, if I'm realistic, like I said, what keeps coming to front of mind for me with this episode is just the relationship with my mom that I'm like, of course I'll die for this woman, right? But I'm realizing that like just because she's my mom does not mean she has to be everything else that I want her to be in my life.
Yeah.
She's not obligated to be that. She's not obligated to be my best friend. She's not obligated to like go out and go on vacation and wear matching shirts. Like she doesn't have to be corny with me.
It's just not for you. Right.
Right.
I like it. Like you don't have to.
You don't have to do it. And so it's accepting that, but also accepting that I went through a lot of hurt, wondering why that might not have been my path, you know? And so understanding that although you don't want to think of like your childhood as a season or like it's not as small as a season, but it was a time in your life. A lot of people had rough childhoods and they're like, oh, I'm glad that's over. Okay. A lot of people are like, man, I want to go back to my childhood. It was so great there. And that's beautiful in both ways because I think hard experiences can bring out the best of us. They also can bring out trauma. Don't get me wrong. And that's why we are so pro therapy on this podcast.
Period.
But the reality is like back to like, hey, am I stuck on the relation rather than the relationship? Am I stuck on the bond of who this person is to me or what brought us together? Am I stuck on that rather than like what is actually happening? You know, what can we do? You know, and I can't sit here and compare. You can't sit here and compare all the people that you're like, I wanted to be able to say that I had this best friend for this song, or I wanted to be able to, like, that's you looking at how it would look for other people. That's essentially what that is. You're wanting to be able to hold that mantle. You know, for me, I wanted that. I wanted to like take selfies and be like, hey, hashtag mom. Like I wanted that, but that was, you know, it's for other. You are so, you just keep doing that. Stop saying that. But the reality is, how do we separate that bond for what it is? Like, how do we isolate that? And like, for me, like feeling obligated to be around like a toxic environment just because they are family or like close friend or relative, that is unacceptable now. Like, I can't accept that anymore. You and I have gone through it with mutual family members, friends, people in our lives where we've just been like, I can't just stay here because we have the same blood. Like you're not nice. you're ruining a lot of good things right now. So I have to preach that to myself. You know what I mean? I have to. Does any of that like?
It all resonates. If that's what you're wondering.
Like, I'm gonna stop you there.
You know, but something that popped in my mind though is like, you know, when you're seeking affirmation from people who don't value you, you're ruining it for yourself.
Okay. Tell me more. Like Jesus.
You were. And I think I feel very, very convicted of this, very seen from this, because it's like contributing. Like honestly, it's contributing to your own demise. Because I think at some point, I like to believe that we're not as naive as we may think we are when we recognize that somebody is diminishing our value when we're seeking to be affirmed by them, right? Like, I'll be honest, we had talked about we have family, and there was a situation for me where somebody didn't want to show up to a life event for me, and they said that they would affirm somebody else in our family in like backlash to me. In that moment right there, I said, oh, you've shown me all that I need to know, and why would I ever even want you to show up to this life event for me? I don't need to be affirmed by you. I honestly, a stranger on the street would probably celebrate me much better than the person that I'm seeking validation and affirmation from. So like for me, that was a moment that I really had to take a step back and be like, am I contributing to my own misery? Oftentimes we are. Like, I hate to say it, and I'm not trying to like, take this and be like super dark, but I know that, we're talking about, being present for others, and we're talking about affirmation from others and being valued, by outsiders. But I think that oftentimes, like, we don't take a moment to actually evaluate like where we are contributing to either allowing somebody, because there are moments, I know that I went into that moment with the best intentions, with like, I gave the benefit of the doubt. I gave you the benefit of the doubt to show me. And it wasn't even like you need to prove to me that, you value me, but it was an opportunity to like, show me how much you value me the way that you say that you do. So can you follow through with what you say? So I think that like, for me, that was that moment. And I know that that was a pivoting moment for me, but there were moments prior that had happened in history where I would let myself be devalued, but I would give another opportunity, and I would give another opportunity, and I would give another opportunity, when it was like, dang girl, like you could have avoided this like 5 steps ago if you sat and you realized.
You saw this. Where's your red flags list now? Where is your
like, where should I make a flag? Like my show.
You need to add on to your list, okay, ma'am? Oh,
but I'm sorry, that was a long tangent.
Don't be
like,
sorry.
I just feel so passionate about that, because I think that when it comes to like value, we contribute to our misery so much more when we put it in other people in the wrong places.
Boom. Okay, so don't be sorry. We're going to sit there for a minute, because let's be clear about what this contribution looks like. Okay. You just said a few things that I'm like, all right, switch up the notes here. We're giving power to somebody knowing that we don't deserve this information. Like, we don't deserve this treatment. We are creating this obliviousness. I remember that moment, and it was life-changing for me, and it wasn't happening to me. But it made me reevaluate my relationship with those same family members. That's that immediate moment. So I applaud your patience prior to that. But what I hear you saying, which I think is, like I said, let's make this clear. That contribution was, you did see the red flags, and we did. And we said, but this is family. And we said, but this is so-and-so. And we respect, and we honor, and we love, like we said those things. And that was us telling us that it's not that serious that you are being disrespected this way. That was initially what we were saying, essentially what we were saying to ourselves, correct? And the more we say that, the more we like let it happen, the more we like sit quiet while it's happening, we're giving them the power to continue to do it. So that's what that contribution looks like. I believe that's what you're saying, because that's us allowing that attack normalizes it. Normalizing that attack then makes it okay. Now I'm not surprised when it happens, and therefore I'm even
Right.
off-putting when I correct you on it. Why? You've been letting me do it for all these. Why you got a problem with it now? Right? And
Right.
so, like I said, those two things you said. A, I'm contributing to my own like defeat. I kept letting this happen. And then for you, that huge moment that happened, and it definitely affected a life moment. It was like, dang, that's crazy. Two, what kind of Wheaties did I eat that morning to give you the power? Like to keep giving you the audacity. Like, you know what I mean? Like I kept, do you get what I'm saying?
That part.
But that's what we do. Like that's the bond we're stuck on. That's the like relationship we're stuck on. That's like, cause I've known you for, and that's scary. Right. Like that's scary, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that oftentimes we're like, well, that's all that we have left. Nope, not true.
Nope. Listen, what is, it was like some saying about like you can't pick your family, but you can pick your friends or something like that. But just the idea that, you know, I mean, I look at the way that, you know, right now I'm going through a life event, right? Third roommate coming soon. And I have the support that I have from someone that I have not even known half my life versus the support that I have from someone that I, you know, came from. It's so different. And it makes, it's like on paper, it's clear that like being related to you doesn't mean that you support me the same way that someone that actually like is like fighting for me supports me. You know what I mean? And so a lot of times, and like that's really a big deal in this podcast, is that it's being realistic and normalizing the idea that sometimes it's your own family, sometimes it's your closest people, and like it's sad, but it's true. And we are learning to like sift through that ourselves. So you're watching all kind of things play out. But Jasmine, that was really good. Like I'm at this point, I'm like, that's a whole nother episode, and I wish that.
No, seriously. I think that like, I just say all that to say that, you know, I know for me, I never want to put myself in a victim's mentality position. You know, not to reference my red flags list again.
Oh my God.
Like
post this like red flags list. I need to make a list.
I got you. We'll post it. Just kidding. Maybe. But, you know, something that I had written down was like, something, I wouldn't say I do that anymore, but something that I have done and I've really tried to grow out of is like having a victim's mentality and wanting to like point the finger. And I think there are times that it's like, yeah, absolutely, there is somebody at fault, but it really, I think, you know, now I know it's like a big like therapy thing is like, what did I do to contribute to that fault? But how did you have a contribution into how you were being treated? And so like for me, you know, it's just sharing. It's like I allowed myself to be stepped on. I allowed myself to be walked on because they did all of this for me when I was younger. They did this for me, but I'm, you know, 26 years old now, and I demand respect as a woman, not as an 8-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Dang. So then, okay, so now it has to be asked. We have like been transparent about how oblivious we've been in some of these relationships and how it's like a continued learning experience. So then the biggest thing is like, well, how in the future, how are we going into relationships with that awareness, you know? And what would it look like to be less focused, you know, on the relation, you know, like what are we even, I guess, like, I'll put it like this. Like, I've had so many situations that I thought the bond itself was going to take the relationship so much further. And I had to realize like the bond itself isn't something that I'm bound to. Like, I can't stick to that. I have to like look at the span of the relationship and how it's developing, right? Yeah. Just because we have this great interaction doesn't mean that's why I need to hold on to the relationship. There needs to be things after, right? So like, funny story, I told you this. I was in Costco like a few months ago. And like, this never happens to me. But I saw this girl, and she had a kid and I had my 2 kids, and like, it looked like we was just 2 moms like running errands. And like, we saw each other maybe like twice in the store. And then like the third time, both of us like at the same time was like, your baby's so cute. Your kids are so cute. And I was like, oh, great. Like, and so we kind of were just chatting it up a little bit. And then we got to the parking lot, and I was telling my husband, like, I was like, you know what? Like, she looks like somebody I would just really want to be friends with. Like, it seemed like we clicked immediately, and I wonder what it would look like to continue a friendship with her. And, he was like, yeah, why not? Like, and so we get to the parking lot, and I realize she's like 2 cars down, and I'm like, now's my chance. Right. So I see her, and I'm like, hey, do you have an Instagram? Like, can we connect? Like, maybe we can do a play date or something. And she's like, yeah, I would love that. And it was great. Immediately we connect. It was great. Never responded to me again. So here's what I learned. I can't get.
She said, here's what I learned. Everybody listened.
I can't be so. But it was such a great interaction. Yeah. That I would think if this were a movie, you'd be like, and they went to, and they were bridesmaids at each other's weddings, and they grew old together. Like, I don't know, right? But like, right. It was just so funny because it was a small way of like me telling myself, the bond, like that moment, that interaction does not mean I'm bound to this. It does not mean that like it has to work out, right?
Yeah.
Just because like we clicked in Costco, one of my most favorite places, like, doesn't mean, it's like parents' Disneyland, right? But like, it doesn't mean that we're gonna become the best of friends. Just because, you were my first love does not mean we're gonna be together forever. Just because you were my friend from first grade doesn't mean. Just because you are my relative who, in theory, should be the go-to doesn't mean, that we're going to have this like predictable, long, great, faithful relationship. That doesn't mean that, and I have to be aware and like proactive going forward and just take every moment for what it is. Yeah. What's happening right now. Enjoy it, love on the moment, and keep it pushing. If this moment is somehow recreated in a few weeks or in a few days, oh, that's awesome. Even better. If this moment is, recreated a month from now and everything picks back up, great. But if it doesn't, okay. We see different like people or any, just like the internet is so crazy, but you see different like relationships and you get like jealous because you're like, oh man, I wish, that doesn't mean it's going to be you. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that it's going to be you and your siblings. That's not going to always be it. Or that's not going to be the relationship you have with even your husband or your spouse or whatever. But it's recognizing that and just, and taking each moment for what it is. What do you think?
And a lot of times, just to like piggyback off what you're saying, like a lot of times when you see those things, you don't know what's actually happening behind the scenes. So it's like you're making an assumption.
Ooh, okay.
Really? But, just kidding. But I know, like, we're talking about season 2. Let me stop with all my ridiculous phrases. I'm just trying to keep up with Gen Z on TikTok, okay?
I'm not. I don't know anything, guys. So I'm just like, Jasmine, teach me offline. Like,
I got you. But we're talking about like communicating moving forward, right? Or
just that awareness of like what we've struggled with, Yeah.
I have a bad history of roommates.
Not the kind of roommates I have.
Not your kind of roommates. Your roommates are very cute. We have lots of fun together. And me, I just have a bad history of roommates. Could be me. Could be others. Neither here nor there. But I think one thing that looking back, like I lived with, girls through college. I lived with girls after college. But like since then, I've lived by myself for a really long time. And why I made that decision was because I took the moment too seriously. I made big decisions off of the moment.
Whoa.
I learned that's not responsible. Because what happens when you get stuck in a different moment that you did not thought would ever, like that I thought would never come. So then there comes fights, there comes arguments, there comes breaking of friendships, there, just like so many things, that could have happened. And so I think that moving forward,
wow,
for me is, similarly to what you shared of like taking the moment for what it is. We hit it off at this coffee shop. That is fantastic. You always co-work here too. Bet. I'm going to see you next Tuesday when I'm here again. Like, and, let it be that and like, let it ride. Or, or even just like, I think for me that I know something that I often do is like, I just want everybody to be happy. And so I'm like, how can I include so many people in so many things? I've learned, chill out, because not everybody wants to necessarily be in your life the way that you want them to be, or they might not necessarily want the life that you want to bring to them either. I think that I push, not agendas, but I know that I have a tendency to like push things that I think are really cool and really exciting onto people. And then like, I know that I've definitely like, people will be like, recommend a good place to me. I'll be like, I love this place. And then I'll send like another text and be like, ooh, but like, I think it's good. Doesn't mean that you'll actually love it. Read
you might not love it as much. Right. I'm a nerd. So therefore I'm
exactly. So I think I say all that to say like, just being better, kind of like communicating who I am to people and being, forward about that, of even like I've like with that example of, sending somebody to a restaurant, I've communicated. I overly get excited about food places. Does not mean that it's the best thing in the world.
It's a love language. It's a love language.
Right.
I don't know why Gary Chapman didn't put it in the book. Like, why did he do that out?
Right.
Gary Chapman, we have a question.
Right. Like,
there's 6 love languages.
There's one that you definitely could
you
have
did
left
not
out and
address
like, replaced,
this.
but it's fine.
Anyway.
So yeah, I think like, just within my, the example I gave of just like moving in, with people, like I took a moment of a bond that I was like, ooh, I think that we could be really, really, really good friends. And I let that determine longevity, which then ended up, coming back in my face. So.
Dang. And then now it's like we're riding on hopelessness. Like right. Just the
we're
hope.
Trying to recover.
Yep. And, you're saying that, as we like start to wrap this up, like I do want to, I do have a question for you, and I'll answer it first and give you time. But you saying those things makes me so excited for this season, because I think that although I do feel like, we have been very transparent during season 1, and we just continue to be, something that I think is important for this coming season is being transparent about what we can change and what that self-reflection looks like. Because this isn't a place to just be like, this is why I'm hurt. It's like, hey, but where can I be better? You know what I mean? And that's something that, me and Jasmine meet a lot on what these topics look like and what these conversations look like. And then how do we go forth and make this relative to everybody? And so one of my biggest things is like being excited about being transparent in that way. And so first of all, my question for you, and then I'm going to tell you something that I was, that triggered this, but like my question for you is like, in what way do you plan on being transparent about your improvement and where that needs to be? And where I got that was, I was on the Tickety Talk, right? I'm just kidding, guys. I know it's TikTok. But so I was on TikTok and I saw this like random TikTok, and it was the guy knocked on the door and was asking his wife, hey, honey, why can't our daughter listen to Taylor Swift? And she said, because I don't want her to think that she can go from relationship and relationship to relationship and not recognize that she could be a part of the problem. And I was like, well, dang, that's crazy. Because are we not teaching, like, you know, and I'm okay, just as a mom, right? Separating like this platform. That's something I need my kid to address from jump. Like, look at what you could have done differently. But like, how amazing that we can allow like this space and time to be transparent about what I could have done wrong. And like, in this culture of, you know, guys just aren't, they not, you know, guys ain't this and guys ain't that, and there's no good men and women ain't this. Like, that's literally the culture we're in. It's like telling everybody that there's no good guys and, you know, there's no good women and everybody's fake and gold diggers. And like, that's what it's saying. And I'm like, did I beat the odds with my husband? Like, did I find the last unicorn? Yes. Did he find the last unicorn? Like, like what happened, you know, we're in this culture where it's like, that's not true. And I guess I feel as podcast, you know, speakers, we have to mirror like what we want people to take accountability for. And so that's my question to you. Like, how are you planning this season to be more open about your improvement, your faults, in any of these topics? Because y'all, it's gonna get juicy. Like, it's we're gonna get real transparent this season.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. I know that, you know, prior to us coming back to this season, you know, you had said to me, you were like, are you ready? And I was like, if I'm not, like, here it goes. Like, I don't really got an option. Like, I agreed to this, right? But I think that, you know, there's something that's so rewarding in taking that risk to be transparent. The best thing can come out of it. And I know that, you know, when I recognize moments in my life where I took the risk of being transparent and showing my faults, you know, showing how I felt about something, you know, expressing where I can, you know, be corrected or, you know, fix something. Those are moments that were most freeing for me. And I actually, you know, was able to stretch my growth even more. And so I know that moving forward in this season, like, I'm really excited to share more details just about hard things that I've gone through. I think that one thing that I know that I've like mastered in my life and is, you know, being able to let somebody know me without knowing me. And that's something that I no longer, you know, necessarily want to always have in my life. I think there's appropriate moments for that. But I know that with this podcast, I've committed, you know, to showing up and being authentic and, you know, giving, you know, my heart every single time. And so even just like I shared 2 of my red flags, I wrote down 7. And so moving forward, I will share the rest of my red flags with you guys. Like, those are things that, you know, are really important because like I know that playing a victim to my life is something that has really impacted me heavily and has led me down a road of destruction that I probably could have avoided. You know, and there's so many others that I listed as well. So I know that I'm just going to continue to really try to share those hard things, like even when it's scary.
That's so amazing. I'm so happy to be doing this with you. It's going to be great. We're so happy to be back. We are so happy to be talking to you all. And I'm going to work on my red flags list.
Should we post it?
Oh, yeah. Like, yeah. Yes. I should probably like get help from my husband. He probably can attest to some of my red flags. I'm like, I didn't think that was a problem. I thought that you liked that. More counseling sessions. Just kidding. But we're grateful, guys. We are so happy to be back. It's a new year. It's a new season. As we go along, we are happy to share life with you, the things that we have been doing and the work that we have been doing for Suffy on our much needed time off. Also, thanks guys for just all your grace and patience on that, because it's interesting to be full-time anything and then be podcasters. It's very interesting. It's interesting when you throw in Jasmine and her amazing career and school and the things that she is just like excelling at. It's interesting when I like have roommates and apparently they need attention.
That's weird, but also crushing it in your career life. That is growing.
I am grateful. And then, you know, like I said, growing a human, like we got a lot going on and we're so thankful that we've been able to take this time and just get back in the mix with you guys. So we will see you next episode and we can't wait to hear your feedback.
See you guys soon.
Bye.